Hey guys, I'm back today, and today we're going to be talking about a very important topic, the topic of taking back control of our life. It's taking back control of our emotional awareness, of our emotional intelligence, of being able to not get triggered by things or food or other people or toxic environments. And how do you go about doing that? So I have talked about this topic, extensively in a lot of my other videos, but it came up quite a few times in the last few weeks with several of my coaching clients. And I thought, if it's coming up so much in my coaching, obviously it's on it's on people's mind. It's something that we all struggle with. I know I used to struggle with this too, of feeling like I'm trapped or feeling like things are just not in my control, or I'm just kind of being pushed around by circumstances, by people, by situations without any proper guidance or any sort of path that I was on. So the first thing that I want to start with is that you absolutely have everything that you need built inside of you to be able to control yourself and control your life. And the first step, I think, of feeling in control is being able to control your own emotions, of how you feel and how you react in certain situations and how you don't react. And this myth of I am trapped, it's a very sort of passive, it's like something is happening to me and I have no control, and it's a myth unless somebody has actually physically entrapped you. They have a gun to your head, they've tied you up, they've kidnapped you. You're not trapped. As long as you are breathing, you're an able-bodied person, you have everything that you need to get out of any situation, to dig yourself out, whether it's financial, relationship, emotional, food. I mean, it could be anything. You have everything that you need. You just need to believe that. The first step is believing in yourself. So just know that that feeling of being trapped, it's a myth. It's a feeling. You're not actually physically trapped. Sometimes people can make you feel trapped, but most of the time it's your own thinking, because even in situations in my own life, I'll use myself as an example, where I thought other people were to blame for my feeling trapped or my being trapped, it turned out they had no intention of me feeling that way. It was all just things in my own head that I had created, because maybe in that moment I needed somebody else to take the blame for all the things that I wasn't doing for myself. So just recognize that. It's easy to be like, well, I would do this, but so-and-so won't love me, or so-and-so will get in my way. Well, if that's the case, maybe it's true. Maybe you are surrounded by evil people that are trying to take you down. Well, what are you doing to build yourself up against that? What is your defense mechanism? You have one. We all naturally have that built. Are you using it? And how do you tap into that? We will be discussing that. Simple Life Mama said, hi, just found your channel, love it. Thank you so much. Welcome, guys. Nidhi, Sumaya, I'm so glad that you guys are here. And let me know, I will be taking comments and questions as we go along. So the first thing we started with is obviously, there is no such thing as trapped unless you're physically really trapped. So stop the blame game. Just recognize that, yes, we will encounter all types of people, and whether they're intentionally trying to take control out of us, they're intentionally trying to be evil, or unconsciously they're doing things to hinder our life or keep us from our goals. In either scenario, you have the choice. You can disable your push buttons. I talk about this. I'm laughing because one thing that I really want to touch on that I have on my notes is this concept of, use what your mama gave you, okay? And let me get into that. Whether we look at this from a religious viewpoint or from an evolutionary viewpoint, and the benefit of having studied both is that I can argue this from either side. The case goes that men were physically created to be stronger physically, right? No matter, you can argue that, and we can talk about female bodybuilders and all that, but the truth of the matter is that the male form was evolved or created to be stronger, right? So whether it was evolution or God, whatever you believe, they wouldn't have left women defenseless against this strong creature, right? We were supposed to be their counterparts, right? Their partners. the nature gave us something that we don't utilize enough, I feel like, or we utilize it for negativity, or we're afraid to utilize it because we think it's very negative. Woman was given the art, the power to be able to dispower a man physically by using her words, by using her nurturing nature, by using whatever you want to call it, manipulation, you call it manipulation. I don't even look at that as a negative term, because I have seen my 2-year-old use manipulation in so many innocent ways to get whatever she wants from her brothers and dad, and I've seen it actually work out. Now she's 2, she's not evil. She's not trying to be evil. And that's where it really dawned on me that this is something that was created to basically equalize the field, right? It's like the great equalizer. Man was given the physical strength, but woman was given her words and her ways that she can play on her words, and ways that she can work around those situations where she may need to either use the man's power, need him to do something for her, need him to stand up for her, fight for her, bring food for her. So the reason I'm mentioning this is that a lot of times I'm getting this this repeated thing of where there's a lot of women, this happens a lot more, I think, in the stay-at-home environment, but it could be in any situation where you feel like you want to do so much, you want to achieve so many goals, but that your husband and your spouse is just holding you back. And it's that difference of how to say certain things, and when to know that it's all right to disable your ego, and know that you get more control by letting the other person have the win. And I'm not saying this to be like, we're not trying to be conniving or anything like that, but it's that wordplay, and I can give you guys so many examples of this. There has been arguments that I've had in my relationships where, we got stuck in that ego where I'm right, you're right, no, I'm right, and nobody was winning. We were all just arguing that. And then I just got in the habit of saying, you know what? You're right. I probably am being completely unreasonable right now. I probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but this is so important to me that I'm going to allow myself to be wrong right now. So I noticed that it would completely disarm and disable the other person, because that's not what they're expecting. They're expecting you to hold up a fight. And you're saying, you know what, there's nothing to fight about here. You're right, I'm probably wrong. But you know what? This is still important to me, and so I'm going to do it this way. And there's so many examples of this, and I will get into it, of being able to control your circumstances and gain that control back. And sometimes you get it by saying, you know what, I'm probably wrong. You're probably right. And I think a lot of times we get so stuck in that, but no, we can't let them think that they're always right, or we can't always give it to the other person. I've talked about this many times in my relationship videos. I have a 2-month rule, and I've always had a pretty bad memory, like a selective memory. I just forget a lot of things. And so I would ask myself, when my husband and I would disagree on anything, I would say, will I remember this in 2 months? This is going to be important to me. And if the answer was no, I'd say, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we should do it your way, because it doesn't matter to me, right? And I did it enough where the other person noticed. And so then if something was important to me, it was really life-changing, life-altering, or I would remember the 6 months, it would really affect me, I would say, no, I'm sorry, I hear you, but I'm gonna have to go with what I want to go in this situation. And I learned that by doing it that way, even if there was resistance, they had to give up control, because they realized that you had given it to them so many times over things that didn't even matter, like where to go eat out, or simple things like that I know I'm not even going to remember. So it's really learning how to say things. Let me give you an example from parenting. Anytime I have asked my children to do something, and if they chose not to do it, I talk about natural consequences, right? If I had a moment where I asked them to do something, they didn't do it, and I turned around and said, okay, you did not do this, therefore we are not doing this now. That's a punishment. That seems like I'm seeking revenge. I'm attacking them. It's mama against the kids. It's on. That's a fight, right? It doesn't feel very good. It doesn't come from a good place. Or I could say, oh, I asked you to do this, you forgot. Okay, I'm gonna have to do it now. And I do it, or I asked them to do it and they did it. And a few hours later, when things had cooled down, the next day even, the weekend, I said, that thing that I asked you to do, it really set me back because it wasn't done. Because of that, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to do XYZ for you that I had promised you because I'm catching up from that. Now, the outcome was the exact same thing. They still got something taken away from them. They still know that they should have done something and they didn't do it. They still technically got punished, but one was a natural consequence and one was a direct attack on them. It was a punishment. You did not do this, therefore I am taking this away from you. And that's the difference about how you can, in that moment, feel control. Let me take some comments and then I have some more notes that I want to get through. Hi, only one single mom said, hi, beautiful lady. Hi, babe. Happy that you're here. Divya said, Mina, I'm watching your live chat very first time. You're such an inspiration for me. Stay blessed always. Love you. Thank you so much, Divya. Happy to have you here. Simple Life Mama said, this is a great topic for me right now. I just started my maternity leave at 35 weeks pregnant. It's been a week and I feel like I'm going crazy. This is so true how that works. Yeah, so, and this, I want to keep it general, but I mean, whatever questions you guys have for different scenarios. So this could be in food. Many times people say, let me give you an example. I keep my home organized, my kitchen, my pantry in a way that, supports my eating, right? So I eat a grain-free, dairy-free, very low sugar diet. I have to eat that way to maintain my health. You guys know that. And I am in full control of my environment. This does not mean that there isn't food in my home that that I shouldn't be eating. Obviously, my kids and my husband do have other items that they eat, but I have put them in a different area of the shelf. I know that when I open my pantry, I've got one shelf. When I open my refrigerator, I've got my drawers. Now, we were in a cabin trip that last weekend where my sister was in charge of the snacks. She brought some snacks, not trying to blame her. Totally my responsibility. I let the snacks get to me. I ate a whole bunch of junk that I wasn't supposed to eat and I feel like complete trash. Like I feel like I got ran over by a truck. It's like day 2 and I'm just trying to detox. This is where you have to learn to remove those triggers and in your toxins in your environment. So obviously I've been able to do that in my home and it makes me very successful in my diet at home. But because I did not prepare myself with taking my own snacks to this trip, I gave in and just had other people's snacks that I had no business eating. And so a lot of times clients will say, well, I was eating healthy, but then my husband brought this in the home, or my husband had this, or he offered me this, or I ate my children's snacks. And one thing I always say to them, and this is a really strange example, and I had thought I would never share this in a video, but here I go saying it. I asked my clients, like, do you have a pet? And if they have a pet, I say, would you eat your dog's food? And they said, well, absolutely not. That belongs to my dog. I said, okay, if you worked in an office environment and there was a refrigerator that everybody was sharing, there was your food and their food, other people's food, would you just help yourself to somebody else's food? Of course not. That's absurd. You would not help yourself to other people's food, correct? So why do you think it's okay to do that at home? And this makes me chuckle every time because now if I look at my kids' snacks, things that I'm not supposed to be eating, it's kind of a sick way of looking at it, but I'm like, that is pet food. It's dog food, it's kid food, it's a coworker's food. It does not belong to me. How dare I touch it? And it's like the psychological boost I needed to be able to say, that is not Mina food. This section right here is my food. And that's how you remove triggers. Now, oftentimes people say, well, what happens if I go to a party, or what happens if my husband brings home something and he offers it to me? You guys know I've been very honest with this in the past. My husband used to do this all the time. He would offer me things. When I first went gluten-free 5.5 years ago, he would offer me gluten all the time. And he would insist that I eat it, knowing very well that I was not supposed to be eating that. I would get sick. And I would say, no, and then I would eat it. And so I trained him that if he asks enough, I'm going to eat it. And so he would ask 3 or 4 times. And then it just got to a point where I felt like I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but at the same time, I would feel physically ill for weeks afterwards. And I figured out a way to do it, to diffuse the situation where his feelings weren't hurt and I wasn't eating it. I would, when he would offer it to me, I would give him a hug, give him a kiss, and say, "You're so sweet. Thank you so much for, bringing this for me," or "Thanks so much for offering it to me." I even would make comments in front of other people saying, "My husband's so great," any other person would use this against me, right? Maybe that I occasionally would have a little gluten in the beginning, but my husband is so great, he looks the other way when I do it. So he would feel good about that. And I would take the item and put it on the side and not eat it. And because I was so busy like hugging him and kissing him and showering him with the affection that he was needing, all he needed was, why I was thinking about it, he's not a bad guy. Why is he's not trying to sabotage my diet, right? He's not trying to make me sick. Maybe that's his way of loving on me right now, is trying to get me to eat something that he thinks is good for me. Maybe he wants me to just live a little, right? But by doing it in a way where he got what he not needed out of it, which maybe was appreciation, I would ask him, I would take the thing, put it on the side, put it in the fridge, give it to one of my kids, throw it away. He would not even notice. But in that moment, it was exactly what he needed and exactly what I needed to get out of that situation. So sometimes, if you are living in a situation where if your spouse, for example, I can give you guys another example. When my sister and I were younger, my mom, if she ever heard us use the word diet, she would like start cooking all of the things that we loved to cook that were like just fattening and horrible and completely derail us like moms like to do. And it would always get us every time. So then we learned, and we never told her we were dieting. If we needed to diet or lose a few pounds, we'd just quietly do it. She'd still figure it out later, but we would not announce it. So I think if you're living in a situation where the other person is not happy with you dieting or changing your eating plan in some way, I think it intimidates people. If your spouse is not ready to make that commitment for themselves, they may feel like you're leaving them behind or you're moving on to something better, and that it might trigger something in them, correct? So don't announce it. When they walk in, don't say, "Hey, today's day one of my amazing diet where I'm only going to be eating kale." No, you just gracefully move into it. And if they're bringing things in, then you say it nicely that I'm not going to have that today, maybe later, or maybe you go ahead. Or if they're just insisting on it, you just make an excuse, say, "My tummy's upset right now. Why don't you put it on the side? I'm going to have some seltzer water and maybe I'll have it later." Don't make a thing out of it. Use what your mama gave you. Learn how to communicate in a way that diffuses other people's emotions, that diffuses that heat of the moment thing where the other person's not feeling like you're disrespecting them or you're, like, for example, if somebody's not on a healthy path and they're eating sugar all day and they're offering it to you by saying, "No, I've decided no, I'm not going to have any sugar today," that might invoke a very strong reaction in them, especially if they're not ready to make that commitment. They might feel very negatively. But if you just say, "You know what, yeah, thank you so much, thanks for getting me this, put it right over here, I'll have it in a minute," problem solved for that moment. You've stepped outside of it enough where, later on, the most they'll say is like, "Oh, you haven't eaten that yet." And you can say, "Oh yeah, I haven't." That's it. So learn to use communication and language, verbal and nonverbal, to your advantage. Remove those triggers and toxins. And sometimes you can't physically remove your husband out of your house. You can't physically change the way your mother talks to you or your coworkers talk to you, but you can change the way how you respond. You can change the way how you react or don't react. And you can even say things like, "I have said this to many," how sometimes you tell people not to respond and they say, "Oh, no, I can't do that because then I would not be standing up for myself." You can perfectly stand up for yourself without being confrontational. I have been known to say this to so many people, and luckily now people I regularly deal with know this about me. But I've said to people, "I'm not sure what it is about this conversation that we're having right now, but it's invoking a very strange fight or flight reaction in me. Is it okay if I just walk away from this for a minute and we can talk about this later?" And it's the way you say it. Now, if I just got up and ran away physically, like literally like just got up and ran away, that's literally like leaving the conversation. That's like having a tantrum, right? It's very different If you just say, hey, I don't know I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, maybe. It's not you, it's me. Something's not right with this conversation right now. I'm feeling a little queasy. I'm going to have to come back to this. And it gives you time to get your bearings without being rude. Who's going to say something, unless they're completely purposely trying to fight with you or purposely trying to be nasty, you just remove yourself very gracefully from that situation. Let's see what you guys are saying. Marcilla said, hi Mina, I do have a question. My husband is the type of person that disagrees with anything anyone says. What would you do? I can't give in on everything. So when you say anything anyone says, like everybody or just you? So personally in that, you could say that, give me an example. So for me, if it's like a general topic, like we're just talking about the weather or how to raise kids or something like that, where it doesn't really matter as long as like we've established some rules that we're following. It doesn't really matter that we disagree as long as we're still moving forward. So for example, there's financial. Let's just take financial. I don't completely agree 100% on everything. You guys know that with Irfan on finances. I've come from a different background. He's come from a different background. And we bumped head many times until I started saying that instead of saying I'm right and you're wrong, I started saying we're both just different in this. And you're right for where you're coming from and I'm right where I'm coming from. But in order to make this marriage work, we're gonna have to find some sort of a middle ground. I'm gonna have to compromise a little bit and you're gonna have to compromise a little bit. And it was not overnight. No, it wasn't. It took like years for us to get to a point where we're both like confident with it now, where I don't feel like I'm always having to look over my shoulder or somebody's looking over my shoulder. So it takes a while. But you learn to say that, you know what, neither of us is right, neither of us is wrong. I've even been known to say, you know what, I'm completely irrational and unreasonable. Maybe it was the way I was brought up. I'm working on it, but right now, this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna both compromise right now until I figure my stuff out. And yes, in some ways, I do feel like it can backfire, because in the biggest way that it's backfired for me is that I always recognize my issues, because I'm very open about these are the things that are wrong with me, but I'm working on them, right? And in our culture especially, it's very hard for the man to ever accept that they are imperfect in any way. And so it did do where it was like always my fault and I was always working on things, but it came to a point where I fixed a lot of my issues and dealt with them. And I feel like my spouse, because he did not ever have to look at himself, thinks that there was nothing ever to fix. And maybe I did him a disservice, but at the end of the day, I feel like he's a grown man and I'm not his mother, I'm his wife, I'm his partner, and I can encourage him and inspire him, but I can't control him, right? So as long as the outcome is still that we both see eye to eye on some level on finances, who cares whether I was wrong or not? Who cares if he was right? So give me some other examples and I can give you more details, but what I would say is that learn how to let him be right in some ways, but still get your way. Still, and not like always get your way, but still be able to come to a reasonable compromise so that we can move forward. And some ways I've done this. Irfan has been known not to respond many times, but I do see that he's thinking, because he will come back to me oftentimes. I will say things like, you know what? You see it this way, without saying whether he's right or wrong. I see it this way. Obviously, we don't agree. What do you suggest we do so that we can both be happy? Instead of saying, okay, we're only going to choose your way or we're going to choose my way. And since he knows that I don't really argue about stuff or make it a big deal unless it's really important to me because of my 2-month rule, he knows that this is something if she's fighting over this, it must be important. And he will, a lot of times when I say that, he won't respond. But I will notice that in the next few days, he will slowly start changing his behavior. Maybe it's hard for him to admit or say that, okay, yeah, maybe I need to change a little bit or compromise, but I will see the changes happening slowly. And as long as I respond back with some changes of my own and some appreciation, it's usually there's no resentment, there's no like, I'm gonna get you back on something, there's none of that. So it's that learning to say no with grace, really, I think a lot of the male versus female communication comes down to tone. It's especially in this relationship, and I would say in any relationship, even the mother-son relationship, as the son gets older and he's coming into, being a man and stuff, he doesn't want any woman, even his mother, talking down at him as a child. So I've done this with my children where around the age of 5, 6, I've shifted into talking to them that they're adults. People make fun of me all the time. I've had many people look at me really weird and say, he's 5, right? I'm like, yes, I know. I'm fully aware that he's 5. And because if you hold people to a slightly higher standard, they like to think that they are at that standard too, right? So if you give a 5-year-old the same respect you would give somebody who's 30, you're talking to them very politely, you're asking them kindly to do things, you're saying thank you very much, I know this is inconvenient, but could you please make this an exception for me? Along those lines, the tone of what you're saying, you still ask them to do something or not do something. That hasn't changed. The way you said it changes everything. It changes how they react to you, how they feel. Remember, that saying that people will remember how you made them feel? This is so true. I have the worst memory. I tell you guys that all the time, but I remember really strange things from my childhood, from when I was like 4 years old, of how certain family members made me feel by making certain comments. So it's so true. Like, they remember that. So it's how you say it, your tone of voice, that politeness, that giving them that, recognizing that this may be inconvenient for a 5-year-old to stop running around, right? When you need them to sit down for a minute. But saying, I know this is so hard right now, this may be inconvenient, but just for a little bit, could you do this for me? It's very different than saying, stop running around, could you just sit down for a minute? You get the drift? It still works on your 40-year-old husband. It's that saying that, you know what, honey, you're probably right. I'm being unreasonable, but I really need you to do this for me right now. Could you just let me be unreasonable for this one day? You get the drift. They're just more like, I feel like the way you say certain things, like your husband will be willing to, I stole this from Dr. Laura. I've talked about her books many times, The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands. She said that men would be willing to swim through shark invested waters to get their wives lemonade on the other stand if they asked in a certain way and were like appreciative of their efforts. Learn to use this. My father-in-law, he was just an amazing psychiatrist, well-published author, amazing guy. He gave me this advice when I first got married. He used to say that this goes for every person out there, but especially for my son. If you want him to do something, appreciate what he's already doing, and he will do whatever you want. And it took me a little bit to understand it and fully like soak that in, but it's so true. It's so true. Simple Life Mama said, I feel like crap when I eat like crab too. I'm also dairy free. I do grains though. Do you eat rice? Occasionally, but it's I'm asking for trouble if I have rice. It triggers all of my RA symptoms and all of that. Personally, for me, over the last 5.5 years, the cleaner I've eaten, the cleaner I've had to eat. Cordhan said, hi Mina, how can you have a steady diet when you're cooking for your spouse who doesn't want to diet? So Cordhan, I have like a bazillion videos on this topic of me cooking separately and cooking separately for my family. So that's what I do. I have told myself, girlfriend, yep, I said that to myself. I said, babe, girlfriend, you are important enough to put in that extra effort. Yes, it's tough, but it's also tough being sick and overweight and unhealthy. So what I do is I cook separate meals for my kids and my husband, and I cook separate meal plan for myself. And sometimes they overlap. A lot of times they want to eat what I'm eating, even if especially, it's so funny, if I had said, yes, today we're having Brussels sprouts and, fish, they probably would have been like, but when I just cook it and they have their meal and I'm just eating it without offering it to them, you'd be surprised how many people want to eat my food then. So I always cook extra in case they want it, and that way I didn't pressure anybody, I didn't force it on them, but they wanted to eat it too. So that's all you got to do. You have to lead by example. Force or control just doesn't work on anybody. The truth is, it doesn't work on me either. If you told me prior to me getting diagnosed with RA and having all this that I have to eat this way, I would have thought you were nuts. I wouldn't have listened because I wasn't ready. I hadn't arrived at that place yet. So I have to allow other people that grace of getting there when they need to get there. Habibi said, if I could apply this advice, it would be life-changing. You guys are so sweet. I think anybody can apply this. It's basic information. You guys have this information is built inside you. I think we just second guess ourselves. We forget it. And sometimes we just need a reminder. And that's what I'm here for. Just to remind you. I promise you, anybody can do this. Habibi said, LOL, that's so true. My husband isn't interested in my low-carb food when we talk about food plans for the week, but when he tries my food, he loves it. The biggest lesson, I did a whole video on this actually, is that stop announcing your stuff. Stop telling people. Let them come to ask you. I went through this really awful stage when I had discovered this life-changing health, this diet, and it was doing like amazing things for me. I think the first month that I went gluten-free, I lost 25 pounds. Of course I wanted to go and tell everybody, right? That's just the type of person that I am. Like, if I discover something amazing, I want to tell people. I learned the hard way that other people are not ready to look for that information yet, and you sound like an idiot if you're going around trying to tell people something that they're not ready for. So I stopped completely talking about it. I stopped saying, oh, I'm just gonna have this gluten-free this, or I'm just gonna make myself this. No, I stopped saying it and I just did it. And eventually people started noticing that my skin had changed, my hair had changed, my entire body had changed, my personality had changed. Everything about me was new and better and improved. And they started saying, hey, what were you saying about your diet? What is it that you eat? What was your channel name again? So I can go check out your videos, things like that. And that's your cue. That's when they're ready. And then, if my friend said, hey, can we do lunch? Can we talk about this, diet of yours? I would say, sure. I love talking about it. But as long as they were open to that and they invited me in. You can't barge in when people are not ready. And that's what I like about my YouTube channel, is because anything I talk about here, I feel like I've opened up the forum and you guys are coming at your will. You're coming when you're ready. And if you're not ready for that video, you are free to not click on it, right? So I don't feel bad doing it here, and it gets that need out of me of feeling like I have this precious information and I should share it with somebody who may be looking for it without like making my family and friends miserable. So, my husband doesn't follow my diet. I see him talking to his relatives about my diet all the time. He tells them it's amazing, they should do it, but he also says he's not ready yet. And I have to respect that. I'm not his mother. And even if I was his mother, I would not be enforcing it on anybody. Food is such a personal thing. It's so personal. You have to do it for yourself, right? What's more personal than something you ingest, you directly put in your body? So let's see what you guys are saying. So Maya said, between me and my partner, he is the healthier one food-wise, but he doesn't impose it on me. I love that, because I'm sure he's inspiring you in some ways, and you'll do it when you're ready, or not. Maybe you will never do it, but it has to be your decision. Enjoying Life's Journey said, hi Mina, I follow a primal blueprint lifestyle that is grain-free as well. It's also legume-free. Living grain-free has changed my mind, body composition, and naturally healed my health issues. I'm assuming you mean Mark's Daily Apple. I follow his blog and have read his books as well. I am a big admirer of his work, and I do legumes very rarely or in small quantities. I can get away with a little bit, but there are certain legumes, like certain lentils, that absolutely I cannot eat. Maybe I can get away with a little bit if I soak them overnight and then cook them, but I am eating a very similar way. I'm hesitant to label it because I've said before that I have to call it the Mina diet at this point, because it's evolved with me. Because if I say I'm eating paleo, but I'm like eating something that's not paleo, but it works for me, then people will say, oh, I thought you said you're eating paleo. So it's like I'm eating a mixture of all these different diets that I have researched and biohacked, and I've made it my own. What else do I want to talk about? So in gaining control, the other thing I want to talk about, and this is where that removing triggers and toxins comes into place. I have learned, at least for my body, and there's research to support this that I've read about, but I see this very strongly in myself, is that sugar, stress, leaky gut, and lack of sleep will impact my mood and my decision-making ability extremely. And I feel like I'm out of control in some way, even when nothing else has changed. Only my diet has changed. I may have been eating really poorly, and maybe my gut bacteria isn't the best. Maybe I haven't been sleeping well. All of that is connected usually for me. That will make me feel like I'm out of control. In that scenario, I'm more likely to say something I regret, or I didn't mean to say. I'm more likely to, make a poor judgment. I'm more likely to have just a bad mood. So knowing these things are important, because if you are constantly like that, you're constantly waking up feeling off, you're constantly making bad decisions or saying things that you later regret, look at your diet. The gut bacteria has been, the gut has been called the second brain. They say it affects the way you behave, you carry yourself, the words that you use, how kind you are, how much energy you have. All of that is affected by what you've eaten and how that has impacted your gut bacteria. So look at that, don't discard that. Those people where they're just off and you're like, this is so not like them, I can't believe they said that. Or maybe you feel that about yourself, that this is not like me. I don't know why I'm behaving this way. I don't know why I'm emotional. Why am I lashing out at people? Why am I letting other people's comments bother me? Look at your diet, look at your stress habits, look at your lack of sleep, fix those things. You can't do it all at once, but I always talk about, I've done videos on baby stepping it. Choose the biggest impact thing first. For you, it may be different. For example, if I tell somebody to change their diet, but they haven't slept in a week, they're not going to have much success. They need to fix the thing that's like the big burning fire first. So learn to see, okay, you know what? My environment hasn't been the best. I haven't been eating the best. I feel out of control. And I'm physically out of control because I haven't been eating well. So know those things. Another thing you can do when you're feeling like you're in a situation where it's a party or maybe in a group of people where you tend to get your buttons pushed, you tend to get out of control, listen more than you talk. And not in a way that you're ignoring people necessarily, not like you're not in a passive aggressive way, but I will calm myself down if I know I'm going to be around people like that typically invoke some sort of a response in me by making comments or whatever. I will be nice, I will be polite, I will smile, and I will just spend more time listening. And I will, as soon as they stop talking, I will ask a nice polite question and let them lead the conversation, because I know that I just have to get through this party or this event or something without letting them get to me. Everybody loves talking about themselves, most people do, right? So if you just kind of bounce the conversation back at them and let them brag about their life or let them talk about everything that's wonderful with them. A lot of times people that tend to push other people's buttons or are negative with other people tend to be insecure people. Think about it. Somebody who's very confident and popular and happy and just amazing life is not going to go around doing that, right? So if you just let them have it, say, you know what, I'm just gonna let you just honor yourself and just talk, and I'm just gonna keep the attention to you. Let that be. And I have gotten out of a lot of sticky situations where I know that I would maybe feel like I'm losing control or they're saying negative things. Just let it go. Another one I would say, let's see what you guys are saying. Shian said, you didn't answer my question. I did not see it. Let me see. Okay, Shannon, I'm sorry, I see it now. She said, how can I apply this conflict in relationships where the other person is keeping a mental score of how much he or she does compared to you? Being defensive has not helped. When you say how much he or she has done as far as like chores or things like that, I do that by getting to it before they do it. So let me give you an example. So I've mentioned this many times earlier on. My husband is a perfectionist. He's gotten way better at it. I've done a video on this. You guys know it's not a surprise, right? And his mom's a perfectionist. He was just that, it just comes naturally to him, and it has benefited me a lot. So not totally negative. I am as far away as you can get from a perfectionist as possible. It overwhelms me to think about doing anything perfectly. So I just do it good enough, and that's fine with me, right? And so my husband, I noticed, would do all these things, and in his mind, he was thinking that he's doing them for me. I personally thought it was all busy work. Like, I don't need things to be absolutely perfect. I just need things to be like done and clean, and it's like done is better than perfect for me, if that makes sense. So I noticed that he started keeping score, and he would get really resentful, and I couldn't figure it out in the beginning because I felt like I was doing my end of the share of everything. But because he was keeping score and he was doing all this extra stuff that I didn't even notice, it was making him resentful. And it really took that, I really had to like sit with this for a while and say, you know what, from his point of view, he genuinely believes that all of the organizing and the labeling and alphabetizing everything is helping me in some way. It wasn't. I don't even notice those things. And so one thing I started to do was notice it before he could make it known. So if he did something, I would say, you're so cute, thanks for doing that for me. And then in other situations, not when it was heated, not when he was resentful, I would let him know casually that it doesn't matter to me if it's done that way. I appreciate if he wants to do it that way for him, but it does not matter to me. So if he wants to let go of that task, I'm perfectly okay with it. And it was, in a lot of ways, I felt like it was a big load off his shoulder, because I think he never had a place where it was all right for him to be imperfect. And I started physically and verbally saying this relating to other people. Again, it's that verbal, you know, if I say I'm coaching him, he's going to freak out. Like, how dare you think that I need coached, or I need, and I would point out other people and say, you know what, from his point of view, he's doing something to help his wife, but I'm sure his wife didn't even notice, because women don't notice those things as they're not that important, or something like that. And I think it kind of started to set into him that a lot of the stuff that he was keeping score at, the reason I didn't notice is because they didn't in no way impacted my life. But I have no problem if you want to do it for you. That was one thing. But if they do impact your life, like, I appreciate my husband takes out the garbage. I appreciate a lot of things that he does because I don't enjoy doing them. I'm always appreciating it. I'm always beating him to it. Before he has the right to say, I did this for you, I'm like, you did this for me. Like, I just love you so much. And then in front of him, I will brag about him to other people and say, people that I know that won't mind about me bragging about this, right? Not to come across in a way that I'm just bragging about my husband, but I'll say, you know, he's so sweet. He knows I hate doing XYZ, so he always does it for me. Isn't that sweet? Now, what is he gonna say? I'm already appreciating something that he's doing. He's not gonna be keeping score on something he knows I'm already noticing, if that makes sense. So to break the cycle, for somebody has to do it, right? And I know that you're probably doing more than your share. But if you can just catch more flies with honey right now and just give it to them. Just say, you are the bestest. You do so much for me. Thank you so much for doing this. Beat him at his game. Learn to play the game, girls. Learn to go and play the game in a way that it suits both of you. The more you appreciate, the more they do, I promise. So if your person is a reasonably normal, happy person that loves you, appreciate it, and they will do it. Okay, awesome, Shan. So I'm glad that was helpful. Let me see what else you guys are saying. Akansha, I hope I'm not mispronouncing your name. You look beautiful in your picture. Hopefully I didn't butcher your name. She said, thanks, Hanmina. You have changed my view towards life. You and your concepts are so clear and helpful. I was feeling a little depressed after following you. I'm feeling amazing. Oh, that just makes my life. Thank you so much. There is no reason to feel depressed or feel down. You got this. You got this. You are in control. Make that your daily mantra. This is one of the first things that I give my coaching clients, is I let that be their daily mantra. I say, and some people say, I don't want to sit and do like a mantra. Like, it makes them feel uncomfortable. I'm like, you don't have to sit. When you're brushing your teeth, when you're showering, when you're having your coffee, your tea, when you're walking, you're driving, whatever you're doing, say, I am in control. I am in control of my life. I am in control of my destiny. I am in control of my relationships. I can always control how other people, I can always control my behavior towards other people. I can always be polite. I am in control. I am in control. And if you start believing you have that control, you've won half the battle there. If you believe it, you know it, because then you become this person that can catch yourself before saying something negative and regretting it later. Let's see. Thank you, Nausea. Thank you for that compliment. You're so sweet. Enjoying life's journey said, yes, Mark Sissons, I agree. Take what works for you. I like the primal blueprint because he included exercise in the lifestyle. Yes, and I love his take on exercise because I think it's not extreme, and he does it in a very fun way. He builds it in with sports and things that he enjoys doing, and that he's like in his late 60s, and I saw a picture of him without his shirt on, and oh my god, he would give people in their 20s a run for their money. So yes, I happily follow his advice because I think he definitely knows what he's doing. Shantala said, my husband feels superior because he is a man, and second, he is good at his job and earns well. When I gave birth and had 4-degree tear, he told me that he did his share by paying hospital bill. Yeah, Shantala, when you get into, I completely know where you're coming from. Boy, do I know where you're coming from, because it's that whole cultural thing. I think some of it exists in every culture, but especially in the Indian culture, I get it. The problem is, my husband has made plenty of comments like that. The issue is, once you get into that, me, you, man versus woman thing, nobody wins. And so I started beating my husband to it again, that thing that instead of when he would make comments like that, it would really hurt my feelings. But later on, I learned to play the game. So you say, I so appreciate that you paid the hospital bill. Because of you, I was able to go and deliver this human being that I made. Don't do it that way, but you know what I mean. In a peaceful way, because I didn't have to worry about the hospital bill. Don't we make a great team? Because you have to remind them that we are a team. This isn't some caveman versus cavewoman. We are a team. I did my part by making this human being, and you did your part by paying the hospital bills, right? But who's keeping score anyways? So learn to diffuse the situation. And my last thing on the list was have a sense of humor. I was at a party long time ago. This is like 6-7 years ago. It was a little bit, my son is 7, and it was right after I had my middle child. I was at a really big party, friends party, 200 people, and it's an Indian party, traditional Indian party. I'm wearing a traditional Indian outfit a couple of months after I gave birth, right? So I'm letting you know because of what's to come. This woman, elderly lady, I've never met her in my entire life. She just happens to be a guest at this party, walks up to me, taps me on the shoulder. I look at her, I'm holding my baby, and she goes, I don't appreciate your outfit. She said, it's vulgar and you shouldn't have worn that outfit. And I was just taken aback. One, it's a traditional Indian outfit. How vulgar could it be, right? And even if I did wanted to wear a vulgar outfit, I had just given birth. I am in my right mind to know that that is not the right time to be showing off your body, at least not the body that I had at that time. So I was taken aback, but I knew that I don't know this woman. I don't want to create a scene and ruin my friend's party. So I looked at her and said, if you don't like it, should I take it off? And the minute I signaled that, she just walked away, and you could tell she was physically very upset that I had made that comment. But I just laughed about it, and she walked away. I saw her later on, repeating the story to other people and trying to create a scene. But in my mind, I diffused the situation by being funny. She has no right to tell a grown woman who she doesn't even know what she's wearing or what she shouldn't be wearing, especially not a new mother with hormones going on. So, sometimes you just got to have a good humor about it. And yes, I could have created a scene. I could have gotten into an argument with her, but I didn't want to ruin my friends. I was there as a guest for my friend, right? And I was there to honor her party. So I'm not going to ruin it for her. But that is the best that I could have come up with at that time. And later when I told my husband, he thought it was hilarious. And he was like, there's nothing wrong with your outfit. So sometimes it's just my mom was really good at this. And I think my sister and I get this from her for sure. I will say that my mom often got in trouble and misunderstood because she had a really good sense of humor. I've had that happen to me too, but more often than not, it diffuses nasty situations. Maybe the other person still gets upset, but I feel like I was funny and it didn't bother me, and I said something funny and they walked away, so it's done. So maybe sometimes you got to do that. with your husband, if your husband says, I paid the bill, then you hug him and you say, my caveman, thank you so much, you caveman, and let him know that you're being funny and silly, but that it's ridiculous. Like, the whole situation is ridiculous. We're a team. It's not me against you. We are a team in making this little human being that we made, right? So it's that when you get into that ego battle, sometimes you have to diffuse your ego to win a lot more arguments or get your way. Again, use what your mama gave you. Nature, God, however you want to say it, the universe couldn't have created a man with physical power without giving something of equal power to a woman. You have that power, you know it. Society has told us not to use our femininity. We get shunned for being sexy. We get shunned for being, don't be manipulative. She's cunning. She's controlling. Who wears the pants in your house? Honey, we all know who wears the pants in your house. You make the man believe he wears the pants in his house, and you do your thing. But you do it in a way that you appreciate him, you make him feel loved, and you get your way. That's it. And I don't think this is a negative thing. It's evolution, it's science, it's God's will. I cannot believe that the universe or our God, whatever you believe in, intended for us to be the weaker sex. It intended to us not have an equal power. Think about it. It gave man physical power so that we can use that power when we needed it. It wasn't designed so that the man could enforce that power on us. No. We are in control. You are in control of your life, your marriage, your home, your husband, your children. You need to learn to believe that and use that to your power. Be sexy for your husband, be appreciative, be what he needs you to be to get him to do what you need him to do. That's the way it works. Learn to play the game your way and get what you want. And it's not, you give a lot. Yes, as a woman, you end up giving a lot in a marriage, but you need to learn how to be able to gracefully get it back when you need it, right? So don't look at it as him versus me. We're a team. One thing I said to my husband before we were married, that we were having a phone conversation. I think he proposed like right after that, actually. I was telling to him that the concept of marriage, the only way it could really work inside my head, I'm the type of person that I don't think you need marriage to be a complete person. So let's just get that out there. If you decide not to get married, or if you're happy being not married, more power to you. I think if more people accepted that they're not marriage material, there would be less divorces because they would be honest with each other if they didn't just like force themselves into it because of pressure or whatever. So I do believe that, and he knows that. He believes the same thing. But I told him, in my head, the only way marriage could work is if we were one unit and I was the female version of you and you were the male version of me. So this doesn't mean we have to become clones of each other, God no. But it just means that we work in sync with each other. Right? So there's no I'm superior to you or you're superior to me. I'm just the female energy in this relationship and you happen to be the male energy. And work with that. And sometimes they're going to overlap. In some ways, maybe I have masculine energy and maybe he has feminine. I don't know. But the underlying thing was that we better be in sync and working together and moving together. He's got things that I need and I've got things that he needs. And so there is no like anyone is superior. But we all know those women that seem to always have their husbands wrapped around their fingers, they get whatever they want, their mother-in-law loves them, their home is clean, their kids are perfect, like everything's good. That's the difference, I think, between those women and other women, is that they figured out how to use their feminine charm, their nurturing nature, the power of communication, the power of gratitude and appreciation to their advantage. That's it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. So kill them with kindness. Let's just leave it at that. Let's see. Enjoying life's journey said, Mina, have you read the 5 love languages? Your advice sounds similar. Great tips. Thanks, babe. So I downloaded that on my phone from Hoopla, and then I didn't get to it and it expired. I have every intention of reading that book. One of you guys recommended it to me, actually. So I have a few other books that I'm trying to get through before they become due at the library. So once they're done, I'm going to re-get it from Hoopla, and this time I'm going to listen to it. It was an audiobook, and I let it expire. But I've been really wanting to read this. It's interesting that you say that my advice is similar. Now I really, really want to read it. So I'll check that out. Let's see. Sumaya said, oh my God, Mina, that is such good advice. We get so caught up in man versus woman. Yes, and then another way to look at it, Sumaya, is that it is like if you are going to look at it as man versus woman, right? It's the truth. Your husband's the man, you're the woman, but he's my man and I'm his woman. So there is no him versus me. Like, he needs my woman and I need his man. Does that make sense? I know this is like a weird conversation, but do you get it? Like, I need him to be a man, because the truth is, a lot of women, I think especially younger women, think that the only way to control a man is to de-man him, is to take away his manhood. No, you need the man. You respect him more when he's a man. I married a man. If I wanted to marry a woman, I would have married a woman. Like, I married a man because he is a man. So trying to take that away from him is not going to serve me, because I need that part of him, right? That's why I married him. So I remind him of the same thing as me. I say, yes, women can be crazy and hormonal and all that, but you married a woman because you wanted a woman. And I say this not when we're fighting or arguing. You say this at other points, just being funny and stuff. So it starts sinking in. When you're in the heat of the moment, anything you say, the other person is not listening. They're just trying to think of their own comeback. They want you to stop talking so they can yell. We do that. Admit it. You've done this. When you're arguing with your spouse, you're not listening. All I'm doing is thinking of what I'm going to say next, right? You're just waiting for that person to shut up so you can throw in your bit. So at that time, just get quiet and listen. Even if you're like, oh my God, I'm going to poison his food later. Just at that time, let the situation diffuse. Come back to it later. I actually learned this from my husband. He started doing this to me, where we would argue back and forth and then zip, quiet. And it would drive me crazy, because I'm like, wait a minute, we're supposed to be arguing right now. Quiet, nothing. But then in a day or 2 days, I would see him starting to make his part of the changes. And that would completely disarm me, and I would start appreciating it. And then I would say, okay, what can I do? Like, I can't not counter that with something. So you get my drift. You have to learn. I hate calling it a game, but these are the rules of marriage. You have to learn to follow them. I highly recommend the books by Dr. Laura. I am not going to try to say her last name. I can't. But her books are The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands, The Proper Care and Feeding of Marriage, and In Praise of Stay-at-Home Moms. Amazing books. Amazing books. You guys have to check them out. Rocky said, LOL, he needs my woman. He does, right? That I'm assuming that's why we joined forces, because I'm a complete woman. I have everything that I need in being a woman. I obviously needed a man, right? So that's why I married one. And so trying to control him and demand him is not going to serve my needs. You just need to use that power of that feminine power to be able to let him use his masculine power, which you wanted. That's why you got married. So that's all you need to know. Hi, Padma. I'm so glad that you're enjoying this. Shantala said, I'm so happy to be a part of this community. I love you guys so much. Thank you, guys. Only one single mom said, I accept that totally. I'm busy, but a much happier version of me. Yes. I think you're talking about when I said about the marriage part. But yes, either way, I think so many of us get caught on, I will only be happy if I get married. I will only be happy if I have kids. And you probably will be if that's what you really want. But I know plenty of people. I have friends that, one of my really good friends, he had gotten divorced in his early 20s, and he's in his 40s now, and he has a successful business. He's really doing well. And his stance is, he says, I meet a lot of people because of my business. If I happen to come across somebody that just blows me away, I'll get married. But if I don't, I'm having a fabulous life and I'm enjoying every minute of it. And I think that's such a healthy outlook for him, versus being stuck on getting married and thinking that his life is on hold until he gets married, right? So I love that. I love people that can be happy regardless. If you are a happy person when you're by yourself, you're more likely to be happy in a marriage, because you're generally a happy, content person. If you go into the marriage thinking that the marriage will be your one all, it will fulfill your life, you're putting a lot of pressure on marriage. Marriage can be risky business. It can be hard work. So if you're putting it all in there thinking this is going to be my saving grace, good luck. Good luck. because it may be, but it's going to take a lot out of you in the beginning to get that little bit back. And nothing against marriage. Obviously, I'm married, but just know that if you are not a happy, content person going in, you're probably not going to be. So no other person can really fix you. You have to fix yourself. Lisa said, hi Mina, are you saying the more feminine you are, the more he will step up in the mark and be the man? So yes and no. I'm not saying that if you're not a feminine woman that your man won't do things for you. In some dynamics that may work, but let me tell you one thing. Let's just reverse the situation. And this is actually a true story. In the beginning, when we got married, my husband had been divorced and living on his own for 7 years, and I had been divorced and living on my own for 4 years. So we had really gotten kind of like set in our ways. And when we got married, something drastically changed, right? He became an overnight father and I became a stay-at-home mom. I had never not worked. And he was used to doing a lot of the house chores and things by himself. And so he would try to do everything. And instead of looking at that as a positive way, I almost felt kind of threatened, because here he was saying, you be the woman and the keeper of the home and the mom, and I'm the man. But then he was also interfering with a lot of the things I was trying to do at home. And so it was that I felt like I was being attacked, or like somebody was trying to take away my job. And so I realized that in order to let him be a man, I had to train him that now I was the woman that he was, like I was the woman to him, that this was my domain now. And instead of like first trying to fight him and invoking this fight and flight reflex in him, so every time I would say, no, you're supposed to do it this way, or I wanted to do it this way, or I'm supposed to do this, he would want to like fight for that even more. Even though in the end, what he really wanted was somebody to come in and nurture him and love him and take control of the home and be his equal partner in a different way. I'm not trying to compete with his job or anything, but that I invoked that in him. So by being, I can still be strong, independent woman. I think I am, but I can allow him to be a man and be feminine when he needs me to be feminine, if that makes sense. So if somebody is a tomboyish personality, I'm not saying that the only way you could get your husband to do anything for you was if you become completely feminine now. No. But feminine qualities are nurturing and appreciative. So instead of thinking, why does he think he earns more than me? Or if he paid the hospital bill, well, I also had the child. You just appreciate the fact that, yeah, I had the baby, and yeah, he's being kind of an idiot for saying this to me, that he paid the hospital bill, but he did. So if he feels that he has that need of appreciation, maybe I'm lacking something that I didn't give it to him. Another example is in our culture, men are very much celebrated, right? The male child is very much celebrated. We're kind of different in that we're crazy about girls, but generally the culture is like that. And so in my husband's family, especially, like he's one of very few boys, and there's a lot more girls in his generation. And so he was very well celebrated when he was a kid, and just like he would literally sneeze and people would clap, and they kind of still do that. And so when we got married, I was not used to, I guess, somebody needing that much appreciation and that much attention all the time. Basically, he would not be able to do any chore unless I was stopped and watching him do it and appreciating him along the way. And I understand like wanting to do things together, but sometimes you need to be able to parallel process, right? I don't need somebody clapping and cheering me on when I'm cooking. So if he's fixing something, I did not think that I should be like, yay, you did it. Oh my God, you're so amazing. You fixed my toilet, and you're just like, you saved my life. It just felt really unnatural to me. I was just not used to it, having been a single mom before, and it was just the weirdest thing to me. And I kept thinking, what a weirdo, like I can't deal with this. And the less I did it, the more resentful he got. And I noticed that he just got really down, and like he would say, I'm gonna go fix this, and wait for me to come celebrate. But if I wasn't gonna watch him, he would just put it off. And then I thought about it. I'm like, why am I fighting this? If this is something that's a really big need of his, and I know it's annoying, it takes a lot of energy sometimes to drop everything you're doing to go cheer somebody on, but it's not a lot to ask for. And I'm like, maybe that's what he needs. He needs a cheerleader right now when he's fixing this thing. He needs somebody to watch him. And so instead of fighting it, I let that feminine energy just kind of calm me down and be like, oh, honey, you saved me. Like, thank you so much. I'm so happy I married somebody that can fix everything for me. You guys will hear me saying that in our live chats and stuff too. I've trained myself to do that with him now. And you should see him smiling from ear to ear. I won't lie, it took a little bit of effort from me in the beginning. I thought it was completely ridiculous. I wasn't used to it. But the man that I married, the man version of me, my other half, needed this so badly from me. And so instead of fighting it with masculine power, saying this is ridiculous, like what about parallel processing? Like I could be cooking right now, like you're not too, why do I need to cheer you on? I just let it be like, you know what? For some reason, he really needs this. He really wants to bond this way. He really needs that appreciation. So I just went along with it. And guess whose life became easier? If anything breaks, my husband will go out of his way to drop everything to fix it for me. He will do it. Saves us hundreds of dollars, saves us time, saves me a lot of hassle. So instead of looking at it as a negative thing, I just say now that all I need to do is cheer him on and he will fix anything for me. He will literally do anything for me. I just have to cheer him on. So that's harnessing your feminine energy. So you don't have to be somebody that wears girly dresses and nail polish and makeup to be able to use these things, if that makes sense. Sometimes you got to give the other person a little bit of what they want to really win, right? If my girlfriends, right, when they look at my life, and again, life is never perfect, and I'm not trying to say, what happened, baby cakes? I'm not trying to say that my life is perfect. Nobody's life is perfect. It's just perfect for you. You just focus on the positive, right? But I will say that when my friends like look at me, they say, oh, you're so lucky, like your husband can fix this, and we have to call a plumber for every little thing, we have to call a handyman for every little thing. And so I started realizing that this is an asset. If I had really fought with him in the beginning saying, this is ridiculous, why do I have to clap and cheer for you every time you do something you should be doing anyways? Does that make sense? That's the difference of being able to, in that moment, harness your female energy. So guys, I think that's my cue that I will let you guys know. Nadia said, really needed this. Thanks so much for speaking on this. I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed this. Only one single mom said, I'm happier being single. And I think you're very smart for being able to realize that and appreciate it and accept it. And maybe you'll change your mind later, and maybe you won't, and that's okay. I always say you are a full complete person, whether you're married, whether you're single, whether you have kids or not. Learn to work with the cards that you're dealt with and look on the bright side of things. I love you guys so much. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's the pajama night, by the way, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.